Hey guys, welcome back to Real Auto Solutions. My name's Jack. We've got a 2022 Kia Stinger that we're about to look at. It's in here for low power and what the customer thought is limp mode. It's got 32,000 on the clock. Full disclaimer, I did just have when the car got towed in, customer was here. Thought I'd just have a quick look with him. He did have a little performance chip in the car, and I told him to disconnect that before he bought it here, just in case that was his issue. I didn't want him wasting money, essentially, in case that was playing up. I mean, he's a new customer. If it was just going to be that, it doesn't really bother me, as long as he gets a result at the end of the day. And so he unplugged it, and it was sitting over here, and this is what it looks like. So it's this little race chip, which I'm pretty sure just bumps the fuel pressure. Essentially plugs into this. It's got some adapters that go into the one went into this boost sensor, one went into the map sensor, one went into another sensor down there, which I'm unsure of that one at the moment, and then where was the other sensor? Another sensor somewhere. So he unplugged the chip, but he didn't plug in the rest of the connectors here. So essentially it piggybacks from this connector into the map sensor and then into the chip. So he unplugged that, and that was logging a couple of faults for a boost sensor A high and the map sensor. It was a low circuit code, which you generally will find when stuff is unplugged or even shorted or open circuits, or even just bad sensors as well. So we scanned it up for codes after clearing those out, just to see how it would drive, in case it was just the chip and he unfortunately didn't connect it back up. Took it for a drive, and it got up to like 60 kilometers an hour. So it got up to like 60 k's, and you could hear some turbo spooling. This thing's twin turbo. I think it's a 3.3 litre V6. Got some turbo spooling, and it wouldn't go past like 3,000 RPM or something. Sorry for the bad angles there, just grabbing a scan tool, but yeah, so obviously there was an issue. It had a fuel pressure and rail low code, as well as those other two map and boost codes. So just plugging in the Autel dongle. I've got the Autel MS906 Pro. So no check engine light currently. We'll just fire this thing back up. Anyway, so we took it for a drive just around the block, and that showed us that this car still had an issue even with the chip unplugged. We've left the chip unplugged, and I said now we'll have a look at the car. Maybe we'll consider putting that chip back in afterwards. So that code that hopefully this should auto ID. The code, there was a pending code that came back afterwards, and it was a fuel pressure code, again the same one that was there before, but it was a history code the first time, and those other map codes were essentially present codes because they were essentially unplugged. The fuel pressure code was in the history. We cleared them out, we took it for a drive. wouldn't go past 3,000. Was stuck at like 60 kilometers an hour. You could hear some turbo spooling. Scanned it again. We had a pending fuel system code, and here we are. So just show you the scan. If you're interested in this Autel, there's a review on the page. Have a scroll through there. One fault code, we're at 94% scan. Just let that finish. Okay, fuel rail system pressure too low. So we'll go into this. Live data. So I did tell him at that point we would look at the fuel system and probably just check the low side first, just to make sure that that's all intact, and then we'll have a look at the high side. But you know, it runs pretty well. It gets up to 60 kilometers an hour. It's probably pretty safe to say that low side's all okay. He did say that he changed the fuel out of it, because this car sits around for a little bit. Fuel. Alright, so we'll search for fuel. So fuel pressure here, fuel pressure set point, fuel pressure sensor, deviation. So our fuel pressure is actually higher than our set point. So this is a GDI, so gasoline direct injection engine. So it's got a low side pressure system and then a high side pressure. So essentially we've got a pump in the tank, and it pumps it up to the engine, and then in the engine we have a high pressure pump that is run off the cam, which is right here. We've got a pressure regulator right here, which is just a solenoid that controls essentially flow into the pump. So the fuel rail, can't actually see too well at the moment. Yeah, so we maybe have an issue in this area with this fuel pump or something like that. But yeah, the fuel pressure at the moment is looking good at idle. Might just take it for a burn. We'll even just bring some RPM up in this thing. So these are the two data PIDs we're looking at right now. Bring the RPM up. So we'll just alright, I'll just grab the garage remote and we'll take this thing for a quick drive. I think I'll just pause the video just to be a little bit safer. We'll graph this. 5 data PIDs. That'll do. So we can see the deviation in the light green, the fuel pressure in the dark green, the fuel pressure set point, sorry. Dark green, the fuel pressure is actually in the blue. See, There's a lot of deviation right there. Just don't want to be confused that that did feel a bit weird. Alright, we'll pause it, I'll take it for a drive, and we'll get you back on the screen. Right, we'll just take it for a quick drive. Hopefully don't get in trouble here, but we'll just prove the customer's complaint. Flat stick. That was flat to the floor. No, the thing's not hardly moving out of its own way, so we'll check that fuel pressure in a second. We'll do a couple more pulls. Flat now. So we're just in playback here. Something that it's very weird. I mean, the set point doesn't move at all, and the fuel pressure sensor, which should be I believe signal voltage of fuel pressure sensor is directly related to this fuel pressure here. So right here we're seeing a big spike here, and only like 0.1 of a volt change in that fuel pressure sensor. Again, we see the pressure is bumping up, a very slight jump. You can see up the top here, yeah, our set point is, not changing. Alright, I think we'll just go back in the scan tool. Pressure. So our map's changing. Just want to make sure to see if we can pick anything else out here that looks a bit odd. Limb home operation, fuel low pressure control on. That's a bit interesting. Wonder if that's on because it has that code logged. As you can see, this is where we cleared the codes just before. think what I want to maybe do is just try and eyeball in the engine bay. Unless maybe I'll clear these codes. And we'll see if that data pid, hopefully. Sorry how it keeps going blurry like that. Okay, so we've got no codes at the moment. So now we'll just search for that data pit again. And go to limp mode. I think I said limp mode something. Limp mode control. Limp mode operation, fuel low pressure control on. Pending code already. Sorry for the pause in the video. My parents just turned up. My dad has a Kia Stinger as well, and he was just interested. What I was just happened to do is go into the EOBD portion of the scan tool, so that's European Onboard Diagnostics, and they can sometimes change the data that they give you. So here we've got an actual fuel rail pressure, and it's at 620 kPa, which is, you know, not a lot. I don't know what the HPA, maybe that's I think that's a direct replacement to kPa. You just got to move the decimal point. So that's probably my bad for not picking up on that a bit sooner. But the desired is probably the desired for what it wants to be at the moment. So as soon as we have that fault, just notice the fuel trims are pulling quite a lot away, but it's not logging any issues, and we're in closed loop. So, but you can tell because it's got short-term trim. If we take the 620 kPa and turn that into PSI, it's like 85 PSI, which pretty much is probably pretty close to low side pressure for this thing. So maybe we've got no high side at all, which would also tell us why that low side, the high side fuel rail pressure sensor isn't doing anything at all. So I'd say low side's probably good, high side's an issue, and that's what we need to do. So I'll pause the video and see if I can eyeball that sensor. I'll pull that cover off around the pump. One thing that I will actually check now, so something that you need to be a little bit cautious of. If I turn this key back on, as you can see, the fuel rail pressure here is actually rising, and the reason for that is there's no, sometimes in some cars, some gas direct injection cars, there's no bleed off like in a common rail diesel, so that we have pressure stored in the fuel system at the moment, up at the injectors and the rail, everything on the essentially the backside of the pump, and the heat is causing expansion and causing the pressure to rise. So if you undid the fuel line, you're going to have a spray of atomized petrol across the engine bay. So you've got to be careful for fires and stuff like that when it's atomized. The way that you would run this out is maybe go into the functional test and cut the fuel pump until the car stalls, pull the fuel pump fuse, watch your fuel pressure, start the car, let it run out of fuel until we've got no pressure in there and it's safe to work on. So be very careful of this. Always variables to the rule though. I had a Lexus one time that it did decay pressure. The injectors weren't leaking or anything like that. It's just normal operation in that one. So I'll get into the engine bay, see if we can pick something up. So I've just taken the cover off around the high pressure pump just to get access to it. And I'll just check the resistance across the solenoid, and that's at 2 ohms, which I'd say is pretty, I don't know for sure, but I'd say it's probably pretty typical for the solenoid here. And I just started it up just to see what would happen as far as the fuel pressure goes. And fuel pressure is pretty much reading the same, so that's, I would imagine, means that we have like no control of the pump at the moment. It's in a default state, and that's sort of matching what we had before anyway, so pretty safe to say that we've got no high pressure control going on at all. So what I might just try and do is stall this car out, and I think I just pull that pump out and see what we've got. See if we've got a fuel pump fuse in here. Nothing that I can make sense of right away, so we'll go back in to load the car up. Sorry about that glare, that's a bit annoying for you guys. Exit the current model. Exit. Go back into Kia. Function. Oh no. Blah 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 blah. Hurry up. Let's see if I can turn the fuel pump relay off. Might just turn the car off and plug that control valve back in. Pop the key back in there. Start that back up. Now I can hear that pump going. Oh, that's only if the engine's off. Might be interesting now. I can actually hear that pump doing something now, which before I'm sure it wasn't doing anything. I'm sure one of these fuses would be for the fuel pump, but it doesn't tell you which one. Which is pretty annoying. Now we've actually got some real rail pressure. And obviously we can hear that pump doing something now. So that was in full shut-off mode before. VPCs. So that was from me. God, that's frustrating. Unplugging that solenoid. I need to get like a head cam. Something I can just hold this thing. Little GoPro. Probably better. Alright, start it back up. Can hear that pump going again. Put our cover back on. Just check the DTCs now. Okay, we'll go for another drive, and if it's got some power back, I'll get you back on the screen. Well, now it's raining. I've gone 50 meters. It feels like a different car. You can see the responsiveness change. This thing actually moves. Pop this window up in case you couldn't hear me. I'm just literally 150 meters away. Alright, we'll try and slow down. Definitely. I mean, this thing's changed drastically. So what I think potentially, I mean, we're going to have to drive it around a bit more. If this is the fix, it's probably from that chip. Sort of forced the car into a default mode. Wait till we get on the straight. Alright, we'll slow down. And stepping on it. And okay, easy pull up to 100 there. We are on the freeway, so this is nice and safe, or also in Mexico. Alright, so now we definitely have some high side pressure. The car's acting normal, and I think what we'll continue to do is go and drive it a bit more, in case, for whatever reason. So yeah, those chips, look, if that's the issue, they're not really any good. I don't like them. I don't know why it's taken like we could clear the codes before and it didn't bring the car back to life. Yeah, I don't know why we had to sort of trip the fuel pump, like to get another code for it to sort of come back alive. I could hear that there was no control of that pump once it came alive. You know, to be fair, I didn't pick up on that straight away, but we knew that there was no high side control at all. But you know, whatever. Just stepping on it again. Turbos sound cool. All right, we'll pause it for a little bit and see what. I'll go, I don't know, what are we at? 3,264. I'll go do 6 Ks in it, see what happens. All right, so did a few more Ks, then what was we at before? 6 plus 8, 14 kilometers in it. I believe before it wouldn't even, well, when it was faulting for the customer, was doing it like straight away. Going back down to the scan tool, our fuel pressure is bumped up massively. So that's 50,000 HPA. I'll convert that. See if we can change this into PSI. Sometimes you can. What is this one? Oh, there we go. It did change into PSI. God, that would have been useful before. Why didn't I think of that before? Is it this button? There we go. Alright, so now we've got 700 PSI when before we only had 80 PSI at idle. So we've 10x'd it basically. Bring some RPM into it. 1700 PSI. If we change our, obviously, well, come on. We, you know, got one PSI of deviation, so things running really good. Where was that other fuel limp mode? Fuel low pressure control is now off. Fuel pressure is looking good. Just drove it. Drives really, really well. Really happy with it actually. Pulls like a train. So I'll call the customer. I think we'll give it back to him. Yeah, feel pretty confident that that was the overall the issue, that chip. I don't think I want to plug that chip back in. I want to give it to him and say, take this, see how you go. Yeah, that's about it. One thing I would say is his tyre pressures are sort of all over the shop. He said it's just had a service a couple months back. Anything that any car, if you guys Kia Stinger owners, whatever, and you have 19-inch or 20-inch wheels, whatever it may be, you need to be running these things at 42 PSI. What have these got on it? I don't know, can't even see the size. 19. So you need to, there's not a heap of strength in the sidewall on low profile tires, and the air pressure plays a big role in it. So if you have a low pressure in your tire, the tire will actually start to fold in on itself and wear the inside of the tire really aggressively. So 42 PSI, keep them really pumped up, check them every couple of months. Well, you don't even need to if you've got TPMS on there. That'll be all good. What else was it going to be? Yes, just had a service at Kia. Wiper blades, absolutely garbage. Look how streaky they are. Nobody cares for their jobs anymore. Service sticker laid over the top of another grubby service sticker, like the residue of it. My beautiful wife, my beautiful son. Yeah, looks like that one's going to be a wrap. Bit of a close up. Thanks for watching. consider liking, consider subscribing, share it to a friend, whatever. It all helps me out. Hopefully this helped you out, and yeah, cheers guys, we'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.